Muzzled by the speaker, Poilievre in hot water again. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Silencing Poilievre. For a third time, the Speaker of the House of Commons has sanctioned the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre was barred from speaking in the House of Commons yesterday for refusing to withdraw a claim that the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly, was pandering to Hamas. This was the offense, according to the Speaker. This happened a couple of days ago.
I gave the Foreign Affairs Minister two opportunities to condemn the increasingly common and terrifying anti-Semitic chants we hear in the streets. Israel will soon be gone. There is only one solution, intifada, revolution. Twice she refused to condemn those remarks. She continues to pander to Hamas supporters in the Liberal Party as part of her leadership campaign rather than doing her job. So I'll give her another chance. Will she publicly support Israel's right to retaliate against the tyrants of Tehran and the terrorists in Hezbollah and Hamas to protect itself? Yes or no?
So once again, the Speaker stood in the House to chastise the leader of the official opposition. This is the Speaker of the House, Greg Fergus.
The leader of the opposition is an experienced member who is well versed in our practices and procedures. He knows that in our system, the role of the leader of the opposition is to ask questions to the ministry, to ensure it is held accountable for its actions, and to challenge its decisions. His role is not to make the government comfortable, quite the contrary. But his actions must also be exercised within the existing boundaries of parliamentary decorum. The Leader of the Opposition should withdraw his comments made yesterday during question period. If he is not willing to do so, the Chair will not recognize him for the remainder of today's sitting.
As you would expect, Conservative MPs were not happy with that turn of events. Michelle Rempel-Garner took to social media to accuse the Speaker of the House of bias.
Moments ago in the House of Commons, the Speaker of the House of Commons, who is a Liberal member of Parliament, just banned Pierre Poilievre from asking questions in the House. I couldn't believe it myself. I was just watching it on TV, and I was in the middle of writing something, and I was like, this can't be for real. And I had to watch it. The Speaker of the House of Commons, remember, this is the guy who's been accused of all sorts of unethical behavior. He's been accused of partisanship. He was the guy who made an announcement for the Liberal Party of Ontario conference, I think, wearing his speaker robe. He went abroad and he was talking about being a Liberal in a formal setting. Like this guy has had to go before parliamentary committees to explain his behavior, and he just banned the Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre, from asking Justin Trudeau questions in the House of Commons. Now, here's the other thing. Here's the kicker. Justin Trudeau has had a lot worse behavior, or whatever he's claiming happened, than Pierre Poilievre has. There's only one reason in my mind why the Speaker of the House of Commons would ban the Leader of the Opposition from doing his exact job. What is Pierre Poilievre's job? It's to do what? It's to hold the government to account on your behalf. And the Speaker of the House of Commons just said, sorry, no, not today. You can't ask questions. Can you imagine that?
Yes, actually, Liberals can imagine that. This is the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly.
When it comes to the Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre himself, let me be clear. What we saw yesterday was the height of hypocrisy. Clearly, Poilievre is doing one thing and saying one thing, and he's doing another. I'll give you 3 examples. First, while he's saying that he's fighting anti-Semitism, he never condemned those who were waving a Nazi flag during the Freedom Convoy on this Parliament Hill. Why didn't he? Second, he cozies up to groups like Diagolon, who spread neo-fascist ideology across this country. Why does he denounce their anti-Semitism as well? And also, when his caucus met with far-right politicians from Germany that were downplaying Hitler's crimes, he kept them kept them in his caucus, and they're still sitting next to him in the House of Commons. So clearly what we're seeing is that Pierre Poilievre is about double standards, and he's about himself, his own political gain, and ultimately, he's unfit to govern this country.
This is the third time Poilievre has been sanctioned by Speaker Fergus. Poilievre was tossed from the House for calling the Prime Minister a wacko, and he was also banned from asking any questions for a day for refusing to apologize during a recent dust-up he had with the NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. It's tense on Parliament Hill these days. There's very little getting done. All business is ground to a halt as MPs fight over the government's refusal to hand over documents related to what the Conservatives are calling the Green Slush Fund. And it's a minority government, and there's no deal anymore between the Liberals and the NDP. And the Bloc has put the Liberals on the clock, giving the government a deadline of the end of the month to pass legislation related to bigger OAS payments and more protections for supply management. At a news conference in Ottawa today, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, said it's no secret what he wants the Liberals to do.
They know what we want. They know how to proceed to give not only us, but all those in Quebec and Canada who want it. They know how to give it. They only have to proceed or find themselves another way out of this, but they know how we will behave. And, I believe that in the couple made by the NDP and Liberals, one of the two went to sleep on the couch. They might have to welcome this group back in the bedroom, but one of the two will be tied to the bed, and I don't know which one. I'm not sure if I were a Liberal, I would want to go back into that situation.
Mercifully, this political week is actually almost done. There will be one more full day tomorrow and then probably a shortened day on Friday. And then all the MPs will get out of Ottawa for the Thanksgiving week break. And isn't that a blessing? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Getting closer. Hurricane Milton is moving ever closer to the west coast of Florida now, and the Tampa Bay area, where more than 3 million people live, is in the path of one of the most powerful storms to hit that area in more than 100 years. At a briefing today, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis outlined what confronts his state.
Hurricane Milton is still a major, very strong hurricane. It's currently a Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. That is just a whisker shy of a Category 5. And while there is the hope that it will weaken more before landfall, there is high confidence that this hurricane is going to pack a major, major punch and do an awful lot of damage.
As of now, 15 Florida counties, home to more than 7 million people, are under mandatory evacuation orders. Milton is expected to make landfall late tonight as a Category 3 hurricane with wind speeds of between 111 to 109 miles per hour. That's 180 to 210 kilometers per hour. And the state government has thousands of workers at the ready. The governor called it a historic mobilization.
156 bridge inspectors, 328 cut and toss personnel, and over 1,500 pieces of heavy equipment. Florida National Guard, Florida State Guard, Florida Fish and Wildlife, and the Florida Highway Patrol have activated additional personnel in advance of this storm. We have hundreds of state search and rescue personnel on hand, 26 total teams. They are currently embedded in the potential impact sites along the West Coast to begin immediate rescue operations as soon as the storm passes. The National Guard is deploying 6,000 Florida National Guardsmen as well as 3,000 National Guardsmen from other states, and so we thank for the support on that. We have 34 search and rescue aircraft been brought in from other states. We have 500 tactical vehicles, including 180 high water vehicles, aerial, water, and ground National Guard search and rescue teams. This is the largest Florida National Guard search and rescue mobilization in the entire history of the state of Florida.
There have already been viral social media moments ahead of this storm. Among them, a veteran Florida television meteorologist, John Morales, tearing up while reporting for a local NBC News affiliate a few days ago as he talked about the strength of Hurricane Milton.
It's just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds. I mean, the seas are just so incredibly, incredibly hot.
Then there's the story of Lieutenant Dan. People are following this on social media. Lieutenant Dan was a character in the movie Forrest Gump, you may recall. This Lieutenant Dan is a man with only one leg and a 20-foot sailboat that he calls home in Tampa Bay. And he told a local TikToker that he planned to ride out the storm on his sailboat because God said he would protect him.
God told me to come out here and get a boat. I came out here and got a boat. And everything that he's been telling me over the last 2 days is I'm doing the right thing. He's got my back. I'm in good shape. I ain't sweating it. We're going to ride this one out. We got set up the way we know what we're doing. And as long as the water just keeps rising, we'll be fine.
Will you be wearing a life jacket?
Hell no.
Are you going to be able to swim if it need be?
In circles.
Can you swim with one leg or what?
Yeah, I can float like a damn champ. But swimming, I just go in circles.
So the plan's just to stick it out here?
Yeah. I mean, the water's going to come in, it's going to rise. If you're on land, it's going to flood, you're risking drowning. I'm in a boat. The boat goes up with the water. So even if the boat goes up 100 feet in the air, I'm going to be up 100 feet in the air with the water. So it's really the safest place in the world to be is on my boat.
Lieutenant Dan was eventually visited by local law enforcement who encouraged him to go to a shelter. As of now, it's not clear if he plans to follow that advice, but many have. More than 30,000 people have taken refuge in shelters so far. State officials in Florida say they have room for almost 200,000 people. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Here with David Smith. Wednesday, Newsday panel just ahead. Lots to talk about with our panelists today. What do you think of this guy, this Lieutenant Dan in Tampa, Florida?
I mean,
plans to ride out the storm on his 20-foot sailboat.
I think he truly embodies the Florida man persona.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well, because you can't ride out a hurricane on a boat, Dan. Come on.
Well, I mean, he plans to.
He's going to try. Florida man's going to try. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I'll be following it, I guess, for the rest of the week. I mean, it's going to be a big story. I mean, this is an epic storm.
No, seriously.
It's going to roll through there. And, I understand, like, he's a man of faith and he's he believes that God is going to protect him. But I'm really, I'm fearful for his future. This TikToker has been like dropping in on this guy off and on for the last couple of days. Discovered this guy plans to ride it out on his sailboat because he thinks God is going to protect a little 20-foot sailboat in Tampa Bay. And he posted a police officer going up and saying, "We're coming back tomorrow, and we really want you to go to a shelter." And in that video, it seemed as though he was like, well, okay. Like his boat is his home. He doesn't want to leave it behind. He's afraid something's going to happen to him if he's not there. I understand all of that, but also your life is at risk. And, the fact is other people's lives would be put in danger too. If you get in trouble and they have to go and try and find you or rescue you or something like that as well. And it seemed as though they had managed to convince him to kind of pack up and go to a shelter. But then there are new videos on social media, and you can see the wind is picking up and the surf is picking up, and they track him down, and he's still on the boat, David.
Yeah.
This seems to be from early this morning. Do you have some audio there that we can play?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Lieutenant Dan update here.
Lieutenant Dan update. Yeah.
All right,
okay.
it's 9 o'clock. We got 3 hours until high tide, and we're checking in on Lieutenant Dan. His boat has risen a little. Dan! Lieutenant Dan! Are you in there? There he is! Dan! We need an interview! There he is! There's our guy! Yo, look at him! Yay! How we doing? Give the people an update.
So far, so good. We're staying on this side of the pole, but it's actually still low tide. If you can believe that.
He says it's still low tide when it's in 3 hours high tide, but his boat is on the concrete. What do you guys say to people? Everyone's
I think that's good, Dan. Yeah. So he's still there, right? As of like the last we heard, doesn't look like he plans on going anywhere. He's got the whole thing tarped down and everything tied up. And my gosh, I hope that's not the last we hear of Lieutenant Dan. I mean, this is the storm. You don't mess with this kind of storm. I mean, the stuff that they're putting together for the news networks and the weather network in the United States, some of the graphics packages that they're putting together showing the storm surge. They had one where they show a guy in front of a house. This is what a Category 1 storm does to a house, rips a few shingles off the house. This is what it looks like with Category 2, Category 3, Category 4, Category 5. I mean, it's really incredible stuff. And the stuff about storm surge, this is what 3 feet looks like. This is what 6 feet looks like. This is what 9 feet of storm surge looks like. And at 9 feet of storm, I mean, you know what those Florida homes are like, Dave. So many of them are one level, don't have a basement. Like the house is gone. It's underwater. And I don't know, this guy trying to ride it out on a 20-foot sailboat. I mean, he's in Tampa Bay. They may find Lieutenant Dan in his boat somewhere in Sarasota.
No, seriously.
Yeah. But one of the stories to be, if you're into social media and you want to kind of like get it down to a micro level, like the story of one man in the storm, I guess it's, the story of Lieutenant Dan. Find out what happens with that. I'm following that with some interest. Meantime, I mean, I have my own weather woes, Dave.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I'm up here in the Upper Gatineau Valley Bureau of News Radio, one-man bureau here in the beautiful Gatineau Hills. And I woke up to snow this morning.
Snow?
Yeah.
Beginning to look a lot.
No. Stop that. Yeah, 9th of October. Yeah.
Say it isn't so, Rob.
Nothing in the way of accumulation or anything. Like, we have mandatory snow tire laws in Quebec. You have to have snow tires on your car. But not until December 1st. My goodness. It's only the 9th of October. And I woke up to snow flurries this morning. Oh.
That's a rude awakening.
I wasn't happy to see that. But it is... it's actually supposed to warm up and be nice by the weekend for Thanksgiving. So our Newsday panel is just ahead on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio, the Newsday panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday panel, and the gang's all here. They include Gary Keller, Vice President at Strategy Corps. Hello, Gary. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you, Rob.
Are you back in Canada, Gary?
I am back in the great city of Ottawa.
Oh, great. Gary was in Poland last week at a big international security conference. Ashton Arsenault is partner at Crestview Strategy. Welcome back, Ashton.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, great to hear from you. You're in Ottawa today as well?
Yes, sir. Nation's capital.
All right. Great stuff. Okay. Well, Ashton, what is your reaction to the Speaker of the House silencing Pierre Poilievre yet again?
I always laugh at this kind of stuff. So if you can find me a Canadian on the street anywhere that can speak to a recent ruling by the Speaker of the House of Commons, I'm going to show you where you can print $3 bills, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, look, the government is neck deep in a $400 million scandal, and it actually looks pretty bad from an observer perspective. They're attempting to hide behind an RCMP investigation without providing the required documentation. It stinks really bad, and I think everyone knows it at this point. So on the ruling itself, I've always been of the mindset that politicians should more or less govern themselves and their positions on what voters want. So whether or not Pierre Poilievre is going too hard or not, I think is a decision best made by Canadians, and he should be doing no more and no less than what voters want. So the last time I checked, he was ahead by a decent chunk, and I think he should govern himself accordingly.
Okay.
If people want to pull their support based on him admonishing a failing government in shambles, they should feel free to do so.
All right. Gary, on... I mean, this is the third time that this has happened. He got kicked out of the House for calling Trudeau a wacko. There was some kind of dust-up between Singh and Poilievre. Singh apologized. Poilievre didn't, so he muzzled Poilievre for the day and then put the muzzle back on him again yesterday. What do you think about this?
Well, I don't think Pierre Poilievre cares too much to Ashton's part. You know, when you're 20 points up in the polls and you're getting reprimanded by the Speaker of the House of Commons, maybe you think, gee, maybe I should do this a bit more. And look, he is going after Melanie Joly. I watched the exchange yesterday, and he did ask her to denounce certain statements very clearly. And on two occasions, she was rescued by the Minister of Justice, Arif Virani, who gave a statement that did condemn those remarks. But he went after her, and that's the job of the leader of the opposition, is to, go after the government, hold them to account for what they're saying or not saying, and he did exactly that. And then he made a comment that the quote was, she continues to pander to Hamas supporters. Your listeners can determine whether or not that was too harsh or over the top. But I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later about Melanie Joly's approach to foreign policy and some of the decisions she's making. So, I think that's absolutely right. As Ashton said, Canadians will be the judge of this. I don't think they're paying too much attention to the noise on Parliament Hill. It sure makes for good copy for Parliament Hill reporters, but I'm not sure it makes more than that.
You think it's inside baseball in the Ottawa bubble kind of thing, Gary? Is that what you're saying?
It is inside baseball.
Yeah, okay.
Where it isn't inside baseball is if you care deeply and passionately about this issue and you're following it very closely, and you maybe feel very, very strongly that the foreign minister not explicitly coming out and saying these things, that may make a big difference to you and to a sizable portion of the population. But are they watching?
But part of me thinks this is good for the Conservatives. That's their thinking. Sure, the Liberals are against us, the Bloc is against us, and the Democrats are against us, the media is against us, and look, even the referee of the game, the Speaker of the House, he's against us too. Boom, fundraising email. It might even be good for the Conservatives.
It wouldn't be
any
the first
thoughts on
time that they've done that.
Right. Ashton?
It is good for them, and it's sort of a us against the world mentality to sort of spin on your riff there, Rob. And the reality is, until people are making it clear that they're unpleased with the direction of the government in waiting, they should keep doing what they're doing. It's as simple as that. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, and they're acting based on how they think and what Canadians are telling them in terms of how they should act. So, I think it's a net win for them.
All right, but what about his rhetoric, okay? Does he go too far with some of the, calling the Prime Minister a wacko, calling the NDP leader a fraud and a liar, coming up with these nicknames for, carbon tax carnies, carbon tax carney, calling Steve Guilbeault crazy. I happen to think Steve Guilbeault's kind of crazy too, but I'm not the leader of the opposition. But does he go too far? Does he cross lines here, Ashton?
I think it's in the eye of the beholder, honestly.
Okay.
Personally, I'm a huge fan of alliteration, so carbon tax carney really resonates with me. But neither here nor there. Again, you show me voters that don't like it, and they're going to vote based on rhetoric in the House of Commons or in the media, and I will say, okay, well, maybe Pierre Poilievre should pivot. Maybe he should, cater his language to be a little bit more on the polite side. But until you can show me that, and I don't think you can right now, I'm going to tell him, if I were advising him, to stay the course. And I think that's exactly what he's doing.
What do you think, Gary?
Well, and if for liberals to come out and play hurt bunny, the Liberal Party is excellent at playing the game of hurt bunny. Oh, woe is us. Oh, we're so outraged by this.
Freedom Convoy, Diagolon.
The Putin wing of the Canadian political spectrum. Like, the Liberals are just as equally offensive on this stuff if you're offended by this stuff. But no, as Ashton's point, it clearly works, and it's language which people understood. Contrast that with some of the liberal language earlier this spring, where they started thinking, you could see it in their social media, they started thinking, if we swear more in our tweets and our commentary, that's going to make us look like the common person. It was so... I can't even use...
Inauthentic, right? It wasn't authentic.
And it just was like a bunch of people in an ivory tower thinking, well, the average person swears a lot, so we're going to swear a lot in our communication.
Right.
It just it made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Prime Minister showing up at Stelco with the donuts. I've kind of said it to me like, well, we're going to a steel plant. Of course, they're going to. The guys at the steel plant will eat donuts. We'll bring them some donuts. So, yeah, okay.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Here are some donuts. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to talk a little bit about what is driving Canada's foreign policy. Gary worked for a foreign affairs minister, so we'll maybe lean on some of his experience here. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
We're back with Ashton Arsenault, partner at Crestview Strategy, and Gary Keller, vice president of Strategy Corps. I'm Rob Snow. So I want your take on this. Tom Mulcair, in an opinion piece, suggests that local politics is shaping our foreign policy, in particular the local politics of the riding that Mélanie Joly represents. Let me read a little bit here. Quote, this Tom Mulcair, it's not as if Joly's utterly incomprehensible positions on the Israel-Hamas conflict can't be debated. From early mixed messaging on a ceasefire to the indecipherable Canadian position in response to South Africa's genocide accusations before the International Court of Justice, there's been a lot to discuss and debate about the Liberal policies. When I spoke with Joly about the Liberal reaction to the South African position, she said something that floored me. Thomas, have you seen the demographics of my riding? Mulcair continues, I know that all politics is local, but I was astonished to hear such a candid admission that very local politics are playing such a role in shaping Canada's foreign policy on this highly complex and sensitive issue. Gary, what do you think of those claims from Mr. Mulcair?
Well, obviously very interesting comments from Mr. Mulcair, and we'll certainly get people talking about it. Look, when it comes to foreign policy and government, there's always an element, especially at the local riding level amongst members of parliament who are advocating for one position or another, who will be influenced by local populations and demographics and just the sheer number of people advocating for one position for another. That's your backbench MP. When it comes to the government and the foreign minister and the prime minister's office, you have to have one unified foreign policy that looks beyond these things. And, I think this is to our previous comments about Mr. Poilievre going after Mélanie Joly in the House of Commons. He was making the exact point that she seems to be making her foreign policy purely on whether or not there is opportunity for her in an upcoming leadership race if Mr. Trudeau leaves. But I want to leave you with a little story. When we were in government, and the Harper government obviously took a very strong position with Israel in favor of the state of Israel being able to defend itself by itself. John Baird was often accused of having a diaspora politics or a local politics pursuing policy. And he would say, in his riding of Ottawa West Nepean, just in the West End here of Ottawa, he said, look, there are 3,500 people in the Stats Canada census who identify themselves as Jewish. But there's about 20,000 people who identify themselves as Muslim on the Stats Canada census. So if I'm doing this for political reasons, I must be the worst politician in the history of the world.
Right.
I am not pursuing this for political reasons. I'm doing it because I believe it is the right thing to do. And so, but I think this is an open criticism of the Liberal Party's foreign policies over the last 9 years. And I think this will fuel continual discussion in Ottawa.
What do you think about what Tom Mulcair has written here? Have you not seen the demographics of my writing? Ashton, what do you think?
Yeah, Rob, I mean, it being radio and all, I'll do my best to keep it polite, but I'm fuming over this one on a personal level. It's October 9th. It's 2 days removed from the one-year anniversary of the worst terrorist attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust. We have a federal government that is pathetically weak, I argue even negligent on the issue for one horrifically transparent reason, and that's votes. That's what it is. I'm frankly sick and tired of people trying to spin it another way. We know government MPs and ministers are taking an earful from their ridings on the issue, and rather having the moral clarity and the backbone to do the right thing and stand by our allies, they're trying to count votes and pander to communities that are otherwise comfortable with hating Jews. It's disgusting. There isn't enough condemnation in the world to explain it, and people in the country are chanting for the eradication of a country based solely on a people and their religion, a democracy no less. So treating terrorists with mercy and failing to admonish their ranks and supporters is a pathetic moral failure, and the only good thing I can possibly say is thank God change is coming, and Minister Jolie should be ashamed of herself.
Okay, we'll be right back. We'll talk about the potential timing of an election. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's our Newsday panel on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
With Gary Keller and Ashton Arsenault on the timing of the election, the fragility of the minority government. Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, the only politician of note, the only political leader of note today to speak so far has been Yves-François Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, who has these two demands: increased payments for OAS and further protections for supply management and agriculture from any free trade negotiations. And the deadline is the end of the month. What could happen then? Well, he says he thinks the NDP and the Liberals are going to get back into bed together. Let's listen to a little bit of him.
They know what we want. They know how to proceed to give not only us, but all those in Quebec and Canada who want it. They know how to give it. They only have to proceed or find themselves another way out of this, but they know how we will behave. And, I believe that in the couple made by the NDP and Liberals, one of the two went to sleep on the couch. They might have to welcome this group back in the bedroom, but one of the two will be tied to the bed, and I don't know which one. I'm not sure if I were a Liberal, I would want to go back into that situation.
Okay.
I love that clip so much. Oh, my God.
What is it that you like about that? I mean, he has such a way with words, that guy, for a guy who's English is the second language. My gosh.
I think that's, I think that's what makes it even better. But, I mean, he's right. It's just a perfect illustration of what's currently happening. He's absolutely bang on.
Okay. So, look, I've been asking people this all week, and I asked people this last week, and I'll probably ask it next week. It's like the weekly election prediction. When is this government going to fall, right? Is it this fall? There was a time when I never thought there'd be an election this fall. Now I'm not sure. Next fall, I didn't think it would last that long. I'm kind of a middle of the road kind of guy, as everybody knows. I still think it'll be this spring. The election will happen in the spring. Ashton, when do you think the election is going to be? When is this government going to fall and there's going to be an election?
Yeah, so in all of the conversations I'm having and, all of the clients that I'm sort of advising and whatnot, I'm choosing to say I'm treating the government on a week-by-week basis. It's better than day by day, and it's a little bit better, obviously, than hour by hour, but this government is down bad at the moment, and I think everybody is watching this October 29th deadline with great suspicion to see what's going to happen. But I'll let Mr. Blanchette's comments stand on their own. I think he's absolutely right. We know the government's scared. They were supposed to have a cabinet shuffle, I think Friday. They moved it back just based on, the fragility, to use your word. But all things being equal, I do think they find a dance partner to get them through to the end of the year, and I think you're dead on, Rob. I would buckle up for spring 2025.
Yeah, I think they're going to present a budget that be like an election-style budget, but I think the parties will conclude by that time that it's time to go to the polls. What do you think, Gary? Right now,
Ottawa's favorite parlor game. What's happening, in terms of the election? Look, I think that's exactly right. I think we're going to have an election. If we're going to have one, it's going to be in the spring of 2025. I think if you think things are bad for the Liberals, look at the New Democrats. They have only raised about $2.8 million for the first 2 quarters of this year. The Liberals about $7 million, and the Conservatives over $20 million. So they don't have the money to run an election campaign, frankly, if they want. Plus the fact all of their campaign staff are thrown around the country working on 3 different provincial campaigns as we speak. So, right. They want it even less than the Liberals want to go to an election. They're just simply not ready for a campaign. I think only like 50 candidates nominated to date anyway. So, the government is trying to front-end load all their opposition days where the Conservatives bring forward these votes of non-confidence. There are 7 of them. 6 of them have to happen basically earlier on. They've had 3 of them already. The Conservatives will get 3 more cracks at it. But if the government is smart, they'd front end all those before October 29th and take out any potential confidence votes after that. So yeah, I think they will find a dance partner, Mr. Blanchette's eloquent comments notwithstanding. And I think it's probably aiming for the spring of 2025.
All right. It's great when we all agree. Thank you so much. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye. Yeah, Ashton Arsenault from Crestview Strategy, Gary Keller, Vice President of Strategy Core. I'm Rob Snow. Talk back right after the news. We're going to talk a little bit about federal politics and the housing crisis on the Talk Back with your help here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. It is 2 hours to debate and discuss the big issues of the day. And we have a couple of topics for you to think about today and to comment on at 1-833-668-2577. One of them is the housing crisis and measures that were announced yesterday by the Trudeau government that it says will help get more housing built and help people find more affordable housing. And the other topic is Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, leader of the official opposition, and the person that all the polls say is well on his way to becoming the next Prime Minister of Canada. So on the first topic, my goodness, I would really like to hear from you on this today, the housing crisis. The Trudeau Liberals announced yesterday a plan to build more secondary suites, like basement apartments and laneway homes, garages converted into apartments and laneway homes. Now, it's quite a detailed plan. There are a lot of moving parts to it, and we have all the details, and we're going to try our best to break it all down for you. But basically, here's the deal, to try and get more housing units built. The government is going to let existing homeowners access up to 90% of their home's value, including the value of any secondary suite, up to $2 million. $2 million. And that homeowner would be able to refinance their mortgage insured by CMHC for as long as 30 years. And all be insured using mortgage insurance like the insurance from CMHC. And under this program, where there is one dwelling now, say a single family home, the homeowner could add another 3 units on the lot if that is allowed in your municipality. And it's starting to become more common under current zoning rules. The government also says in order to qualify for this program that homeowner/borrower or a close relative has to occupy one of the units, although a close relative, the government doesn't define what a close relative is or even how that is going to be enforced. The government also has what it is calling a secondary suite loan program, where an existing homeowner could apply and get a low-interest loan of up to $40,000 to help cover the renovation cost of a secondary unit. And there's some other fine print in there as well. Any and all secondary units must be fully self-contained. They must have separate entrances, and none of these units can be used as short-term rentals. That's it in a nutshell. And we really want to know what you think of this program. David and I were talking about this for quite some time this morning, trying to figure it out, because for us, it raises all kinds of questions, some new questions, some old questions. What we really want to know is, do you think this is a step in the right direction in trying to get more housing of any kind built, housing that can be accessed at more affordable prices? Or do you have the same kind of questions that we have? Does it rely too much on, say, government involvement, CMHC loans, CMHC mortgage insurance on properties valued at up to $2 million? Who's going to build these units? Who's going to live in them? Do you want to live in a neighborhood where once there was one housing unit and there could soon be 4? And everything that brings, increases in traffic, increases in noise, the strain on fragile municipal infrastructure. All of these kinds of issues are in play with an announcement like this. Please share your thoughts. Look, I would love to hear from people who have some level of expertise or experience in residential real estate. Maybe you have rental units already. Maybe you've worked in property development or property management or in the mortgage finance industry, some background there. What do you think about what you're hearing from the government? Because it is quite likely you would know more about this issue than me. But please share your ideas with me. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. That's topic number 1. Okay, for today. Then topic number 2, the secondary suite, if you will, is Pierre Poilievre. There is a narrative in the political media in Ottawa that Pierre Poilievre is just too mean. He's too abrasive. He's too combative. He picks fights with journalists. He comes up with nicknames for his political opponents, like Carbon Tax Carney. He's been accused of debasing the debate in the House of Commons, to the point the Speaker of the House has had to kick him out of the House of Commons once and ban him from speaking in the House of Commons twice. And there is this narrative coming from some columnists that Canadians will eventually grow tired of these antics, and that will be his undoing. There are more and more political columnists making this case of late, and we want to know, for those of you who like to follow politics, do you think Pierre Poilievre is too mean? Is his rhetoric too nasty? Is it over the line and over the top? What would you say? If you have some thoughts on that, please join the conversation today. The call-in line again is 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called us before, just tell our call screener that you are a first-time caller and we will make your call a priority. Again, David is screening the calls today. You'll speak to him and then you'll speak to me. What a treat for you. 1-833-668-2577. Your phone calls coming up next. It's Talkback on Wednesday here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What do you think about the Trudeau Liberals' latest plan to build more affordable housing? It includes letting people refinance 90% of a property's value over 30 years, insured by the CMHC. Home builders could build as many as 3 additional units on a building lot, if that's allowed where you live. One of the units must be occupied by the owner or a quote-unquote close relative. I'd really appreciate hearing some of your insights on what you think about this program. And what do you think about what you hear from Pierre Poilievre when you listen to him speaking with the media, when he has a news conference, when he speaks in the House of Commons? Is he too mean? 1-833-668-2577. Rick in Cambridge. Thanks for calling. Rick, you're on the air.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Rick. Thank you for calling.
Rob, I live in an older neighborhood, and I kind of caught what you were saying, and I'm limited on what I can explain, but to sit there and put more properties or more buildings on lots in classic older neighborhoods for profit, I think they're just going to start destroying these neighborhoods with these little places and stuff like that. And the $40,000 that they're offering, that's not even close. That wouldn't even cover the infrastructure. I'm thinking, like, the price of everything like that's for sewage and electrical.
Yeah, there is the secondary suite loan program. Okay, you apply, you could qualify for $40,000 in what it calls low cost loans to help build a secondary unit. This is one of the questions I have.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure
how much housing does that get you? $40,000 in a home renovation. What do you get for $40,000 in a home renovation?
You could barely do a kitchen or bathroom for that these days. Like, my neighbor just did their kitchen, and it was $100,000. Like, I was like,
$100,000. Wow, must be some kitchen.
Yeah, it is. He's a chef too, so.
Okay, all right. Wow, $100,000. Holy smokes! Right, but you know what they're envisioning is like the basement apartment has to be a completely separate unit. It has to have its own entrance. If you have say a detached garage on your property, they would love it if you would turn that into a laneway home. I'm just wondering. I mean, $40,000 is a lot of money. If it fell from the sky and landed on my lap, I'd take $40,000 right now. Sure thing. I just wonder how far that goes to do a major housing renovation, though.
Yeah, that's I don't know. It's just like, I know in our area they're encouraging, like in Cambridge and stuff like that, people to put smaller buildings in their backyard, because we have a lot of laneways, so you can have access that way. But I don't know. I just think it's really taken away from the community and stuff like that, and I don't think it's a solution at all.
How so? How is it taking away from the community, would you say?
Well, you start overpopulating, and it becomes more. I don't know how you say it.
More traffic.
More traffic. Like, it's definitely
more housing means more cars.
Yeah, I don't even think you could
more noise.
Cars in our area. You could not squeeze in more cars. You know, like, we're pretty tight as is and stuff like that. But I've heard people saying that they were thinking about building on our properties and everything else. But we got, like, classic neighborhoods and stuff. To start putting more properties in it, it just leads to more overpopulation, I guess is the word I'm taking. Like, you can only put so many people in the square.
They call it gentle density. They call it gentle density, but you don't think it's very gentle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's the solution, to tell you the truth. That's just my opinion, Rob.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's go to Linda is calling from Airdrie. Hi, Linda.
Oh, hello, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good today, Linda. How are things where you are?
Well, it's a beautiful sunny day. I'm
that's good.
Quite alarmed and worried about some relatives in Florida waiting for the hurricane, but right now we have a sunny day out here just north of Calgary.
Well, that's good. You know where I live, about an hour outside of Ottawa. I woke up this morning about 5 o'clock this morning to snow flurries, so I wasn't very happy about that.
Goodness sakes. Well, you keep warm, Rob.
I will indeed. What do you want to talk about, housing or Poilievre?
Housing. So I'm in
Okay.
my 19th year as a realtor. I'm dual licensed. I'm originally from Ontario, from Aurora and Barrie, Ontario areas. And so I am still licensed in Ontario and then licensed out here in Alberta. And so we are just getting through the blanket rezoning conditions in Calgary, which created a lot of opposition, obviously, from existing homeowners with existing neighborhoods who are concerned about seeing 2 or 3 units on the lots. We do have to address something to provide more housing, but I think the bigger picture is that Trudeau will take all the glory, but he's really putting it back on the homeowners to mortgage themselves out again and owe more money. So who's really going to be solving housing crisis here is the taxpayer and the homeowner, not Trudeau. And he'll take the glory and say, look at all the great housing I've created. But he hasn't really, right? He's putting it back on the people.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here, let me give you some of the terms here. So the government has what it calls maximum property value limit against which any loan would be secured. That is set at $2 million, okay? $2 million. And it would be
a lot of mortgage debt on an individual,
and insured by the CMHC, okay? Insured.
With the extra insurance fees as well as the renovation fees. I think the better core
But it's a lot of risk for CMHC to assume as well, you know, as the insurer. So then it has what it calls the loan to value limit. So as someone in the industry, you would know what that is. The government says it will be 90% of the property value.
I mean, 90%. You can't even do that as a first-time home buyer normally, and they don't want to take that kind of risk on. They like to see a little bit more equity going in. And I think the bigger question is a lot of the young people today coming along, they're finishing college, university, they're getting decent jobs. But we have a family friend, and he's in a really good job, just got declined on a $450 mortgage. And they need to take away the stress test. The time for that pilot project has come and gone. It's not necessary anymore, in my opinion. If they released the stress test, eased mortgage restrictions, as a self-employed individual, I am in a private, staggering product at 10.95%. So when people go, oh my God, my mortgage interest rate is 5%, like I wish. So I'm trying to get back into the conventional mortgage market. And I was told I fell just shy of income threshold to get that last year, so we'll try again this year. But I think the mortgage rules really is the problem with the housing. The prices have gone up so much. Like in Toronto, an entry-level townhome is just shy of $1 million, and the benchmark in July for a detached home in the Greater Toronto area was 1.4, was the average price of a home. People can't afford the existing housing, and they can't qualify under the existing mortgage rules.
Okay, thank you. Good to hear from you in Airdrie today. All the best, Linda. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback, talking housing, talking politics today. Housing politics as well. You're on Now You Know on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the Trudeau Liberals' latest plan to build more affordable housing. It involves a lot of secondary suites and a lot of new debt by existing homeowners. And Pierre Poilievre, what do you think of this? Is Pierre Poilievre too mean? What would you say? Let's go to Jeremy in Calgary. Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hi, Jeremy.
I just like to just say, I think, he is a little bit brash, but at the same time, I think it's a better alternative than what we have right now. I think that by him being a leader and being strong with his words might offend some people, but at the same time, don't have to like your boss as long as your boss has your back. And I think Poilievre, from the way that he comes across, that he's looking out for Canadians versus their alternative that we have in our country right now.
Okay. What do you think about when he, for example, when he picks fights with the media, or he calls Justin Trudeau a wacko, or he calls Jagmeet Singh a fraud and a and a liar. He comes up with these nicknames for his opponents. What do you think about that?
I don't fully agree, but at the same time, it's a sign of frustration. But at the same time, is he really not talking about the truth? Is he saying it like it is? And yeah, you shouldn't be name calling because it should be a little bit more professional. But he's getting the point across because some of these politicians these days seem to be very corrupt. They talk from one side of their mouth to the other, and it just frustration, even on my part too, right? Because I have children, even with the housing. I know that when I was growing up, I was able to afford a house at 19. I have a 19-year-old, and he has no chance of getting a house right now.
Right.
Things have to change.
So sometimes it may be off-putting to you, but you're saying it beats the alternative?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think you have to be firm, like you say, the name calling, and but I think you have to be strong because it will offend some people. But as long as he's got our back and makes things better for our life, I'm all for it.
Okay. Very interesting take, Jeremy. Thank you for calling from Calgary today. Great to hear from you. We're going to stop here and then pick things up. The latest breaking news is coming up next. It is Talkback today, Wednesday edition. We are talking about the housing crisis today and the leadership style of Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party. Feel free to weigh in on both. 1-833-668-2577. We're back right after the news with more of your calls here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Discussing the latest plan from the Trudeau Liberals to build more affordable housing units in the form of secondary suites, and your thoughts on the leadership style of Pierre Poilievre when he speaks with the media in the House of Commons. You know, is he too mean? Is he too abrasive? The nicknames for the political opponents, the fights he loves to have with members of the news media. Is it over the top? Is it too much? What would you say? I read more and more political columns along those lines. People are arguing that voters will eventually grow tired of Pierre Poilievre and his antics. And yes, he has a big lead in the polls, but the way he conducts himself, it's going to get old fast and it's going to turn voters off. But hey, he's the one that still has the big lead in the polls. Anne in Ottawa. Thanks for calling, Anne. Hi there, Anne.
Hello?
Hi, Anne.
Oh, sorry, I have to take it off speaker.
That's okay.
Hi there, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Your show is now 2 hours of talk. That's amazing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, well, thank you for that. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, but no more
That's
Ian
good.
Lee.
No, Ian Lee is on just an hour earlier now.
Oh, but
Yes,
how come
yeah.
I don't hear it? Oh, maybe on the podcast or something?
Yeah, you would hear it if you listen live. Yeah, on online. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
where you are.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments. Okay, one is
Okay.
about Pierre Poilievre. You know, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool conservative, and I love Pierre Poilievre, and I'm absolutely going to vote for him. Sometimes I wish he'd shut his pie hole.
Oh, really?
Okay. Sometimes I think he's trying to get the attention of people. And the thing is, he's already got people like me. He's got to win over people that are sick to death of Trudeau, and some of them are going to be a little wary of this. So sometimes I think his comments, while I don't think he's treated fairly by the media, I think he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about that, but sometimes I wish he just wouldn't add all these colorful words. However, what happened in the House of Commons yesterday I thought was totally unfair. being kicked out by the speaker for what he said.
Silenced,
Well, in my view, he said nothing untrue. The Jews have not been treated fairly by this government, and there has not been enough defense of them. And what's going on absolutely appalls me with these protests. If there was any other group, they would not be allowed to do it. If it was like a bunch of people saying, "Oh, let's kick all the black people out of Canada," I don't think that would be allowed for 5 minutes. I'm sick to death of all this crap they're getting away with. Now, the thing about the mortgage thing, once again, Trudeau's trying to get credit for something someone else will have to do. Any program like this should have been administered by a municipality, because there's something going on now in Brampton. I listened to Toronto Talk Radio, 1010 and 640, and they were talking about this thing a couple of weeks ago in Brampton. There was this big fuss about people building driveway homes, and it was causing all kinds of problems, like with fire regulations and all kinds of stuff. Because they weren't doing stuff to code. I don't know, maybe this is a potential thing, but it sounds like getting people into more and more debt. And I agree with what that real estate agent said. They need to look at relaxing mortgage rules. I think that would be a big thing, because some of these mortgages are huge. My daughter just bought a house with her new husband. It's over $1 million here in Ottawa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but fortunately they had a good down payment, but even so.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Ann. Good to hear from you.
Okay.
Listen online. Thank you. Bye-bye. Mary Ann is calling from California by way of Drumheller, Alberta. Okay, Mary Ann, hello.
Hello, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good, Mary Ann. Thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking my call. I would like to talk to you about Poilievre's antics. I mean, I love his ideas. Everything is like for us, the people, except his language. I wish that he would talk like an adult, not a child. I want an adult to represent me. He's going to represent millions of people. Talk like an adult. You know, like I understand the frustration. I get flustered. I call people names. I'm 59 years old, but really, sometimes I feel like I'm behaving like a 5-year-old child having a temper tantrum. But if you want me to be interested and stay interested, I would, you know, all his ideas, I'm leaning in his direction. But the antics, and I'm so sick of that word rhetoric. It is such a garbage word, but...
Okay. I'll try not to use it anymore. Okay.
So
All right.
It's so overused, and it's terrible. But the language and the name calling, like you're supposed to be representing people, and that's not how I want to be represented. I want to be heard like I have a level of intelligence that I can understand what you're trying to say. So talk to me in that tone. I mean, I don't want lawyer lingo, but really...
Right.
Let's talk like adults, right?
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your call. All the best to you, Marianne. Call anytime. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2570. I mean, you know the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Roll the tape, David.
When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko prime minister?
It's clear now Justin Trudeau is seen as an absolute joke on the world stage.
Jagmeet Singh is a fake, a phony, a fraud, and a liar.
Currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
I mean, certainly you.
I think CP should stop acting as the communications arm of the PMO. The question is why? No, I asked you a question. You keep asking what the agreement is.
We're the journalists. It's democracy. We ask the question.
I have the freedom to ask questions if I want to. It might sound like something out of a horror film, not from the real world. But unfortunately, after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP, the real world is a horror film.
Okay, so that is the prime minister in waiting. A lot of people are saying, but right now he's the leader of the opposition. When you hear stuff like that from the leader of the opposition, what do you think? Is it too much for you? Is it a turnoff, or is it exactly the opposite? And you like someone who doesn't mind mixing it up, going after the Liberals, going after the NDP, and if it's called for, I guess going after the news media too. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. More of your calls just ahead. It's Talk Back on a Wednesday here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right back to the debate on the leadership style that we hear from Pierre Poilievre. Eric in Cole Harbour. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Eric. Thank you.
Poilievre there, I was just listening there where he said, a wacko ideas by a wacko, prime minister or a person. Maybe he should just sort of said, his concepts and notions are not generated by proper discernment of the reality of the situations that we're facing. I suppose you could say it that way.
I suppose, yeah.
But I wonder if a lot of this stuff is, we seem to be living in a highly charged, politically correct society right now. And really, really hypersensitive. I feel that with guarded language, there's nothing wrong with saying carbon tax carney. I mean, as long as there's no detraction there, you're not insulting the person personally. You're just attacking his policies. I don't really see what the issue is. Be careful in your language, rephrase it. But,
right.
What's the big deal? Then if you look at...
the previous caller says it makes him sound immature.
Well, I don't know if it's... Well, yeah. You know what? I could agree with that. He could use a better choice of words. But, however, let's not be hypocritical. Let's look at some of the things, and no attack on the media. I don't have anything against the media. But they can be called into question, as they were a couple of weeks ago, on CTV, and they came out and they said they were untruthful. So, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. Fact check what you're saying and then say it. So again, you don't get into detraction and present an improper image of the person that you're talking about. I mean, that's exactly how I feel.
All right, Eric, thank you for sharing your thoughts, sir. Appreciate it. Let's go to go ahead, Eric.
I was just saying, it sucks to be in Ottawa right now if it's snowing. It's really warm.
Yeah, well, I'm a little north of Ottawa. It didn't snow in Ottawa, but I'm a little north of there. So
maybe you should have stayed in Nova Scotia, buddy.
Maybe. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for rubbing it in. I am getting my snow tires on this weekend, by the way. Mary in Kitchener. Mary, hi, Mary.
Oh, hi, Rob. I wanted to get in on the other thing about the
housing.
The housing and what the federal government is doing. And also, I live in Kitchener, and you can put a fourplex on your property. My question is, Rob, you're going to have to upgrade your sewage, your water, and do your roads more often, Rob? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do indeed.
Where does that money come from? Guess who?
Comes from property taxes.
Yeah. So it's all on the backs of us.
Okay.
The feds, yeah, you can say that, but it's on the backs of us. It's not a fair situation. The feds brought in too many people, and there's no place to go, and now you want to build all this stuff, and the municipality is going to have to put in the infrastructure will come down on the people that own a house. And they could be seniors that are struggling, Rob.
Yes, very good points, Mary. Very good point.
Thank you.
Especially with the fragile nature of municipal infrastructure. I mean, ask them about that in the city of Calgary, where they went all summer with water restrictions. Thank you, Mary, for your call. Kyle in Listowel. Kyle.
I always like Mary's phone calls. I was going to say I would like to talk about the Pierre Poilievre thing. I have no problem with the way what he's doing. He's actually calling out, what's going on. There's truth to it. right? But at least he's calling out stuff. He's not hiding behind things or saying things that are, he's putting it out there. And I like to have a politician, and a lot of people aren't talking about this, but I like to have a politician that stands up for the Canadian flag. And what happened yesterday is nobody else called it out but Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives and maybe a couple of NDP that are municipality, but at least they're sticking up for the Canadian flag. Where's Trudeau on this? I have not heard one thing about Trudeau. All he cares about is the dental thing, but he's not standing up for the backs of Canadians that fought for our country about what happened with the Canadian flag there, Rob. And
right. You're talking about the protest. You're talking about the protest in Vancouver where they burned the flag, right?
Yes, I don't understand how Pierre Poilievre antics are more important than what happened to our Canadian flag that happened yesterday.
Okay.
I really don't.
All right. I got you, Kyle. Hear you loud and clear. For a long time, whenever I heard from people who wanted to support the Conservatives, or people who were thinking of voting for the Conservatives because they weren't happy with the Liberals, this would apply both provincially too in Ontario, where I did talk radio for a long time. It applies at the federal level too. What I used to hear is, I kind of like him or her, but I want someone with fire in the belly. Okay. I don't want someone who is necessarily nice. I don't, or is going to go along to get along. I don't want liberal light. I want someone who will take the fight right to them with fire in the belly. I used to hear that all the time. And you have that, and I guess a little bit more, maybe on steroids when it comes to Mr. Poilievre. We'll be right back. Talk Radio. Talk Back. Wednesday edition here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Popular topic today. What do you think about what you hear from Pierre Poilievre when he's speaking with the media, when he's speaking with the House of Commons? Is he too abrasive? Does he cross lines? Does he go too far? Is he too mean? Okay. And the Trudeau Liberals have yet another plan to build more affordable housing. It includes letting people refinance 90% of a property's value over 30 years, insured by the CMHC, and it would let homeowners build as many as 3 additional units on a building lot if that's allowed where you live, if the local zoning rules allow that. This is a big announcement from the Trudeau Liberals. It has the potential to reshape the very nature of many neighborhoods all across the country. I'd love to hear from you about it. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Dave in Halifax. Hi, Dave.
Good afternoon, Rob. I just wanted to mention I find it amusingly ironic that a guy named Snow is the first guy to report snow this season.
Yeah, well,
so
I wasn't very impressed with that this morning. I don't even have a pumpkin out, let alone having snow on the pumpkin. But anyway,
run out and get your Christmas tree, man. Pierre, our good friend Pierre, I think his style is a hangover, or possibly it's muscle memory from when he was Stephen Harper's attack dog. I listened to that guy for years, and I just developed a visceral dislike for him because of the very style that he's emulating now, and doesn't fit for me as a prime minister or leader of any kind. But that seems to be where he's stuck at. So, I guess vote accordingly depending on how you feel about it.
Yeah. But he's also stuck at 40% in the polls with a 20-point lead. So how do you explain that?
I think this just goes back to the style he employed in his previous years with the Conservatives.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the issue. It could be any issue any day. His style is his style.
But it's working for him.
Pardon me?
Why is it working?
Well, polls are polls, and they've been known to be amazingly inaccurate at times.
Well,
when the rubber hits the road, it may not be that big of a gap. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just saying that I think the only, and you've heard this before, the only poll that counts is the one at the voting box. So we will see when the election gets triggered by whatever method, we'll find out what's going to happen, and then we're just going to go from there.
Okay. So you do think it's over the top, too much, hard to listen to?
Oh, definitely hard to listen to.
Definitely. Okay.
It was hard to listen to him when he was working for Stephen Harper. And it didn't matter what the issue was back, and you probably remember this. Didn't matter what the issues were of the day. He just came out like a rabid dog, and that was the way he handled things. And every question was deferred to him, to the majority, and it's just a continuation of that. And I don't think that's prime ministerial material.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for your call, Dave. Hope you're well. Bye-bye. Chris, we're going to unfortunately have to make you wait. If I bring you on now, you'll only have 45 seconds or so to make your point. And I want to give you more time than that because you've been kind enough to call, but it's going to wait until after the latest breaking news, which is coming up right at the top of the hour. And then it's another full hour of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
So we've been talking about this plan to build more affordable housing by way of secondary suites that was outlined this week by the Trudeau Liberals. There's a lot of details in this. Very significant announcement that I think makes a lot of assumptions that are very important. Really love to get your take on it. And we've been talking about the leadership style that you hear from Pierre Poilievre. He stands accused of being just too mean, too abrasive, crossing lines, going too far, kicked out of the House of Commons, silenced by the Speaker. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Chris in Martins Point, Nova Scotia, which I actually had to look up on a map. How are you, Chris? Good to hear from you. Thank you.
I'm good, Rob. Thanks for taking my call. I realize that right now the topic is Poilievre's leadership style, but nice thing about this show is it's about opinions. So here's my opinion, and my opinion is that right now the big three parties, as they call themselves, the Liberals, the NDP, and the Conservatives, there's not a leader amongst them. There's not one, in my opinion, that inspires me. There's not one, in my opinion, that gives me the confidence that I would say this person has the ability to run the country, or even has the what would you say, the best interest of the Canadian people at heart. I don't see it. In my opinion, the last leader of any party that I saw that actually inspired me was Jack Layton. Jack led by example. He carried himself with decorum. And I believe he would have made one hell of a good prime minister. But the rest of them, they act like children. They embroil themselves in scandal after scandal. And really, if a leader is supposed to lead by example, what example are they setting for the rest of Canadians? That's like I said, Rob. That's just my opinion.
Well, let me ask you on the shortcomings. And I appreciate you're not enthralled by any of them. Okay, fair enough. You're not the only one who I'm sure has that opinion. The current leader of the New Democrats, since the last person you thought was a great leader was a former leader of the New Democrats. I don't know if you're inclined usually to vote for the New Democrats, but Jagmeet Singh, what do you think about him? What are his shortcomings? Like, he's not embroiled in scandal or anything like that.
You could say he's not. I mean, there's rumors, but that's what they are. They're rumors. Unsubstantiated. But I mean, he's been linked to Sikh terrorist groups. But that notwithstanding,
well, I wouldn't say he's been linked to them. He's been accused of being sympathetic to the Khalistan cause, for sure.
Well, yes. It's the nature of being a Sikh. It comes with the territory, I believe. No, I think.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think the people who think there should be a Khalistan, an independent Sikh state, I think that's an even minority opinion in the Sikh community, from what I understand. But nevertheless,
I think the biggest shortcoming I find with him is his inability to answer a question directly or even indirectly. It's frustrating to hear him when he's being questioned about something. There's too much evasion, and in my mind, if somebody's evading something, there's a reason for it.
And with Poilievre, what's your beef with him?
He's too flippant. He's much too flippant, in my opinion, and I think he's almost. It seems like he's almost like a teenage boy. He's giddy with the power that he's got right now. He's got a 40-point lead in the polls.
20 points.
20-point lead. He's got a substantial lead, and I believe
you think it's gone to his head, kind of thing. Is that what you're saying? Or
I
do.
Okay. I don't see there. When he started out in that. There was a certain amount of sincerity it seemed there, but now it's just that's gone. It seems to be all showmanship. It's all posturing, and I don't put any substance in that. I don't. As a leader, that is a shortcoming to me.
All right,
like I said,
Chris. Fair enough. Really appreciate you sharing your opinion, calling today. Great to hear from you.
You have a good day, Rob.
You too, sir. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. From Martins Point, Nova Scotia to Calgary, Alberta, Brian is on the line. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Rob. I want to discuss about Trudeau's blanket rezoning and multifamily thing.
Yes,
we had town or in our city hall held consultations for 2 weeks, hearing people's verbal and written opinions about it. 80% of the people were against it. The city councillors went ahead and railroaded it through anyways, so a large lawsuit was launched against blanket rezoning, and I guess they were successful. I guess last week the judge put a pause on it and stopped it until further. He's got to look into it further, but actually they were able to stop it because we got situations where there's people up now in northwest Calgary that own high home residential properties, and they want to build 6-story high-rises right beside these people's expensive homes. My God, that's crazy. Just devalue their properties, and though the people here are fighting it, we're not accepting it. 80% of the people here, property owners, don't want it.
Yes. And what are their concerns, sir? Traffic, noise,
everything.
Infrastructure,
they want
questions,
these
residential
multi-level rezoning that they want. They're talking about 6-story high-rises, 4-story high-rises in a residential neighborhood. You got to be kidding.
Well, the plan announced yesterday by the federal government is not about, say, fourplexes or triplexes or 6-story buildings. It's more about basement apartments and laneway homes, granny suites, this sort of stuff.
We have a problem here with radon gas, sir. We have a problem with radon gas in the basements. And I tell you, I don't think anybody in the right mind should be renting a basement suite with the problem that we have with radon gas. And in Alberta here, it's particularly bad. And I would not recommend anybody suiting their basements up unless they do a really good check of that for that radon gas, because they could be very disappointed and not be able to rent it out.
Well, I have a lot of questions about what was announced yesterday. I get the goal. We need a lot more housing, right? We're in a housing affordability crisis right now.
We did have housing here back in the 1970s. Peter Lougheed built subdivisions of what they called AHOP homes. These were low-priced, little, maybe 900 square foot bungalows, little 1,000-foot square 2 stories, and they were Alberta Home Mortgage home ownership program. And it worked beautifully, and people could get their own standalone, single detached homes. And I don't know why they're not doing this today. Why are they?
Well, I guess now, where would you build them?
Well, out here we got lots of land. We're not like Vancouver or Toronto. You look to our east there. There's bald prairie there for miles and miles. We could get as much subdivisions as we want. That's not a problem here. They don't have to.
Okay, but you have to service it. You have to have transportation links, garbage collection, sewer, water, all of this stuff, right? Police, fire, ambulance, all of this stuff. So.
The homes were sold at a discounted price, so the prices they got from those homes paid for those services.
Right. Okay.
All right. Those houses weren't given to those low-income people for free.
But you raise a point. Because here you have the federal government. It is encouraging people. I mean, you picture this. If you're, in an older neighborhood with, where the streets are lined with single-family homes, the government is trying to move heaven and earth to make sure that you can have 4 units where there was once 1 unit. And believe me, I followed that story in Calgary very closely. I interviewed all kinds of people about it, lawyers, the mayor, councillors who were opposed to it, concerned members of the public, because the meeting went on for weeks, as you say. And I think, Calgary kind of highlights the situation. There's a lot of pushback where they try to do this. People aren't crazy about whatever the government wants to call it, gentle density or what have you. Okay, we have to stop here. Thank you for your call. I'm Rob Snow. Wednesday Talkback, 1-833-668-2577. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On this housing plan that was announced by Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of Finance, this week, let me just give you the bullet points on this again, because this is all supposed to come into effect for lenders and mortgage insurers in the middle of January of next year. Government says all about trying to get secondary suites built across the country. Basement apartments, laneway homes. So bullet points, okay, right from the government's own literature. Insured refinancing will be allowed for the purpose of building additional units. Borrower must already own the property. Borrower or a close relative must occupy one of the current units, although there's no definition of what close relative actually means. Borrower must intend to construct additional units, must not be used as short-term rentals. New secondary suites must be fully self-contained, meet all local zoning bylaws, maximum 4 dwelling units, including the existing unit. So then the government has what it calls maximum property value limit, against which the loan is secured. That is set at $2 million. And then the maximum loan to value limit, the government says that's 90% of the property value, including the value added by the secondary suite, maximum amortization 30 years. 30-year mortgage. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? If you happen to have some expertise in this area, by all means, you can share that experience with us. Frank in Calgary. Thank you for calling, Frank. Hi there. What do you think of this program, Frank?
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good, Frank. Thanks.
So I am a mortgage broker and also right now in the middle of legalizing my basement. So perfect topic for me.
Okay.
Now, the biggest thing is, as a mortgage broker right now, most of my clients are like B lenders, meaning alternative lender clients. They are not qualifying because of the income and the affordability. So you want me to go back to the insurer and say that, like, I'm going to get more money when they are not qualifying for an insured mortgage as is. So de facto, typical liberal policy, it sounds great on paper, but de facto it is not really applicable because of all these stress tests. And, nobody talks about applicability of this issue from my point, right? That's the one thing. Number two...
so you're saying before... Just let me interrupt there. You're saying before coming up with, a bunch of new rules to try and build secondary suites, you're saying fix the rules that are in place already that's preventing people from getting a mortgage. Is that what you're saying? Things like the stress test 100%. And whatever. Okay,
definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
Yeah, interesting.
Because,
okay.
They can't even buy a $600,000 house with 5% down. Like, keep in mind, rule of thumb is, like I tell my clients, if you want to buy a $600,000 house with 5% down, most of the money goes to the CMHC fees anyway. Therefore, you need like $150,000, $135,000 annual gross income to qualify. Given that you don't have a loan, like a car loan or line of credit, this, that, right? To begin with.
Right.
And then you are going to increase that. Like, once you get to 200,000, you are 1% of Canada. Like, you know,
right.
Like, you know, it goes back to all your programs. It is unaffordable to begin with, and then you tell me that you are going to give me more money, that I need to qualify more.
They say they're gonna try and make it easier for people to borrow more money, right?
Yeah, like when you go from 25 to 30 years, it just makes about 10% difference. Like, so, you know, I was qualifying for 500, I'm going to qualify for 550. Like, it doesn't make huge difference. That's number one.
Yeah, but also over the 30 years, how much more in interest are you paying to the lender over the 30 years as opposed to the 25?
Like, I'm making it more like a cash flow. You are right. That's another point.
Right, cash flow. Yeah, okay.
I mean, you know, like, again, most of the liberal policies, they are good on paper, but they are not applicable. Let's face it.
All right. Good on paper, but not rooted in reality. Fair enough. Thank you so much, Frank, for calling. Yeah, good to hear from you.
One more thing?
No, we're out of time. I'm sorry, I got to move along. We'll have to stop here. It's Talkback on a Wednesday. This News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now. Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Another component of this whole attempt by the Trudeau Liberals to build more secondary suites, basement apartments, granny suites, laneway homes. The government is now touting what it calls its Canada Secondary Suite Loan Program, which I didn't even know about until yesterday. And under that program, borrowers could apply to, from what I understand, the CMHC for what the government is calling a low-cost loan of $40,000 to help cover the construction costs of secondary suites. And I was asking David today, can you even renovate a basement? And can you take someone's basement and turn it into a fully contained secondary suite for $40,000 with its own entrance? Or can you do a laneway home for that price? I don't know. I don't know how far $40,000 is. Better than nothing, I guess. Brian in Calgary. Hi, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call.
So, Brian, you're in the renovation business, I guess.
Yes, I am.
So what's a basement, if I have a typical kind of Canadian house, middle-class house, I want to turn it into a basement apartment. What does something like that cost these days?
Let's say you want to do, I'm going to say 600 to 800 square foot suite, okay, for the sake of argument.
Yeah.
You do a separate, you have to do, and I'm talking Calgary situation now, you have to do a separate entrance, separate heating system. All of those things come into play. You're probably looking at somewhere between 75 and 125K at the minimum.
At the minimum,
75K would be really, really bare bones. Probably 100 to 125K is where you're going to get started. Because you take a separate entry is probably $15,000 to $20,000 by the time you core cut the concrete in, put the appropriate door in, and that type of thing. Then you have to have a separate electrical. So there's probably another $5,000. You do cabinetry, you do your finishing work. You also have to have separate heating, so separate furnace or something along those lines. It'll add up. Now, $40,000 is not insignificant. I mean, it's a good start.
Yeah. It's a loan, though.
It's a loan, and that's part of the problem. Okay, it would really only help somebody who's got their house paid off already, and it would really only help in the sense that the people might decide to borrow that money in as opposed to cashing in some investments or something like that. The old story, you got to have money to borrow money, okay?
Right, okay.
The other thing that I would encourage anybody to check on, and I would encourage them to go and see a tax professional before they do this, because if you have a secondary suite and now suddenly you're getting income for it, does that change the rules in terms of your capital gains tax for your principal residence?
Does it become an investment property or whatnot?
Yeah,
right?
So I really, really would encourage people to look at all the different angles.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's something I didn't consider. Thank you for raising that. That's probably an important consideration. Great call, Brian. Thank you from Calgary. I'm Rob Snow. Back with more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
A couple of topics in the mix for you today. The Trudeau Liberals' latest plan to try and build more affordable housing. The leadership style of Pierre Poilievre. He's been sanctioned now by the Speaker of the House, not once, not twice, but thrice. I don't know. On this whole secondary suite program, I have so many questions and yet so few answers about this, David. First of all, there's a voice in my head and it just kind of keeps whispering to me. They want to keep the real estate party going. Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's this idea that the housing market is so important to the economy. They're worried about cracks in the real estate market. And they want to move heaven and earth to keep the real estate market afloat. Maybe that's me being cynical. I don't like being cynical. Being skeptical is okay. Cynicism, David, not healthy. Okay?
Okay.
There's also this. None of this helps anyone your age who doesn't own a home already.
No, not at all.
Right? Who's trying to buy a home. It might help you find a new basement apartment, Dave.
Oh, lucky
or
me.
Maybe you can live in a converted garage.
Oh, such a lucky boy. Yay.
But all of this is aimed at getting existing homeowners to borrow more money for longer periods of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have them build the housing units that will then become rentals. Look, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a not so good thing. Like, I would be more inclined to hear from people who know more about this industry than I do. I can tell you I'm not too crazy about having the government's mortgage insurer insuring refinances on properties worth $2 million. Like, that seems kind of crazy.
I think that's totally fair. What is the message here? Hey, you have a giant mortgage that you can barely pay. Refinance it, get into the renovations business.
And we'll insure it.
And then become a landlord. Doesn't that sound fun? I don't know how many people are actually going to go for that.
And this is a debate. I'm telling you, it's happening all across the country right now. Every municipality, they are having this debate at just about every city hall in Canada. And that's just, how far are we going to go with housing density? You know, especially if you live in a neighborhood where the streets are lined with single family homes and people like it that way. And now, because of changes at the federal level, the provincial level of government, municipal level of government, where there was once one housing unit, single family home, they want you to have 4 housing units on the same building lot. As the caller mentioned, when this came up in Calgary, the meeting lasted for weeks because 4 housing units means a lot more cars, a lot more traffic, a lot more noise, and a bigger strain on antiquated municipal infrastructure like water and wastewater systems. You know, let's get back to the phones here. Let's go to Patricia's in Calgary. Patricia, hi there.
Hi there. How you doing?
Good, Patricia. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's good.
My job, I'm lucky. My job affords me to travel around the city doing my job, and I see all this new construction coming in, 4 houses on one plot of land. It looks, there's no room to move. Personally, I wouldn't want to live in one of those houses. A lot of people do. And they're paying an arm and a leg for very little property to what you could get for $600,000. It's just not worth the money. And people can't afford it. And this economy is just not done. And as for one of your previous callers who says Alberta government did take over building houses for low income, I have one of those houses. They're a fabulous house. But the government, Alberta government, got out of it because people were walking away from that mortgage. Now, if people can't afford an Alberta government low payment,
Right.
There's no way they can afford it.
So that must have been what in the late 70s, Patricia, early 80s, when the interest rates went to 18, 19, 20% in those days. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was in the mid 80s when people were walking away from their mortgage. You couldn't give a house away.
Right. Okay.
And
all right, Patricia.
It's going to happen the same thing all over again, and that's just, it wrecks everything up.
Right. So you don't like the way it's changing neighborhoods? You think people are paying too much for too little house already?
They are. They are. In this city, they are.
All right. Thank you for your call. Good to hear from you. Thank you, Patricia. Mike is calling from Calgary. He's a realtor. Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey, so with the, the interesting part is anytime anyone has ever tried to take money out of their homes, the maximum you could ever take out was 80% loan to value of your home. And I'm a realtor in Calgary. And the reason why is because CMHC, you couldn't bring CMHC into the equation after you'd already purchased your house. Here's the interesting part. The government wants you to borrow extra money. You can borrow up to 90% loan to value, which means then you're going to pay CMHC fees so that it can be insured. Yep. And so the government's still getting their money or getting extra money based on the fact they're allowing people to do this. What they're doing is they're putting the onus of building these suites on everyone's backs. If we had a stress test that was a flat rate of 5.25 or 5% like it was for the previous 6 years before the interest rate increases, then the home builders would continue to build houses. But Toronto, for instance, right now, there's so many condos that are coming on the market and people can't afford them that all the builders have stopped building and most of the builders are actually going bankrupt. We're going to be in trouble in 4 years because when the interest rates drop, there's not going to be enough units built and we're going to be in the exact same position we were 3-4 years ago in Toronto and the Toronto market. The federal government needs to look at what's going on with real estate and fix it where it's broken in each jurisdiction and why it's broken and not have a blanket stress test for everyone because the builders just don't want to build anymore. Okay.
So what's wrong with the current stress test, like 2 points above whatever the prevailing rate is? What's wrong with that?
Well, right now we
outset.
We increased interest rates 10 times. We've never increased interest rate 10 times in our life. So we have people trying to qualify at 7.5%. I had a young family, husband and wife, 3 kids. They've paid their rent every day for the last 5 years. They saved up $50,000. We tried to buy them a townhouse, and the townhouse mortgage payments were going to be $400 less than what they've been paying in rent for the last 5 years, and they couldn't qualify based on the stress test. You have to remember, like the mortgage broker said that was on there earlier, $150,000 is what you have for income for a $500,000 to $600,000 house. Then that means no debt. So you can't have any credit card debt. You can't have any car loans. You can't have any student loans. You can't have any of that stuff. And that credit to debt ratio, when you're trying to qualify at 7%, the math doesn't work anywhere.
Okay, very interesting, Mike. Thank you for your call. Really appreciate it. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So when Chrystia Freeland was making this announcement about the changes to the rules surrounding building secondary suites and accessing financing for this, she was kind enough to present journalists with a few examples of how all this is intended to work. This is right from the Department of Finance, okay? Let me quote here, okay? Amina and Karim are young working professionals looking to purchase their first home in Burnaby, British Columbia. They find a single-family home with a separate garage out back in Burnaby, British Columbia. I wonder how much that costs. With a single car between them, they think about converting the garage into a laneway home to generate additional income to help pay down their mortgage. In addition to new flexibilities in mortgage insurance rules to enable Amina and Kareem to access mortgage insurance for a property value that exceeds the current limit of $1 million, the new secondary suite loan program will help them convert their garage into an adjacent laneway home after the home is purchased. They apply to the Canada Secondary Suite Loan Program for a low-cost loan of $40,000 to help their renovation costs. And once they find a tenant, they are able to use the new rental income to cover the cost of the loan. That was example number one, and this was example number two. Yuval owns a single-family home in St. John's, Newfoundland. Despite having accumulated significant equity in his home, he's feeling the strain of mortgage payments, property taxes, and other expenses from higher living costs. Targeted changes to mortgage insurance rules would allow Yuval to refinance his insured mortgage to access his home equity to convert part of his home into a rental suite. This could allow him to earn rental income to offset his mortgage expenses and property taxes, while also providing a much-needed rental accommodation in his neighborhood. So, I mean, that's how the government sees all of this working. Is it good? Is it kind of good? Is it not so good? Is it madness? I don't know. What would you say? Luke in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Luke. Hi there, Luke.
Hey. So, yeah, hey. Chrystia Freeland it's whatever. You know, she can read a script all day long, but she is a big reason that everybody's in this hot water with not being able to afford things and their mortgages going through the roof. So it's kind of funny for her to suggest anything. You guys touched on it. Like, how terrible would it be if everybody becomes a landlord all of a sudden? If you haven't tried to do the landlord thing, I can tell you that it is an insanely large task for just a regular person to take on and to do properly. Not to mention, you spoke to that other caller who described how much it would actually cost to do a basement renovation. I actually thought he was low. I thought he was going to say like $150,000.
He said 75 to 125 to do a one basement apartment. Yeah. Here you could have two, you could have three. Yeah.
If you can afford to do it, but then your mortgage is that much more anyways, and you're not gonna be approved. I really think people need to just take a breath and stop asking the government to fix their problems for them. Okay, we keep going. They have to do this. They have to do something about that. They have to fix this. Just get them.
Well, we do have to do something. We need to build a lot more homes.
Well, not necessarily. We do.
Oh, yes.
We do need more density. We need more density. People, if people keep moving here and then decide and realize there's no housing for them, then they will stop moving here. Like, the solution to the problem isn't necessarily to make the problem worse. The government just came out with an idea on how to make things worse for everyone.
You think so?
That's all I'm hearing. This long term, that only creates problems for the individual. Like, I had a methadone addict end up renting off me once. Let me tell you, the last thing a family of four needs is a methadone addict living in the basement. And I can tell you there's a pretty good chance that's going to happen with the opioid crisis, right?
All right, Luke. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Let's go to...
we have to come at this a little bit smarter.
All right. Okay, thank you. Perry in Calgary. Perry.
Hello.
Hello, Perry.
I'm Perry. I just meant to say that regarding the housing, one problem that I see is lots of those little bungalows that you would deem affordable one day, they all get over-renovated. And what is something that was already over-evaluated in the $500,000-$600,000 is now renovated in the $800,000. It's full of marble counters and crystal chandeliers or whatnot, you know. It's just...
Right.
Can we just have like a regular plain bungalow where it's affordable, little piece of land, and then as we go, if this is, deemed a starter home, as we grow in it, we put it at our taste, and then we bring it up to the standard that we wish we would have one day. But, for me, looking to put money aside, working 60, 70 hours a week with the rent that just doubled in the past year, for me, it's impossible to put anything aside, and even less to... we're looking at a little bungalow, we think, this could be affordable, and it's way out of price. So ultimately, I just think there's too much incentive for the builders or to build luxury property versus actual properties that could be a starter home, could be upgraded into a nicer home, and then eventually maybe have a basement suite in a neighborhood that has been already built in mind for future growth, because all those old neighborhoods here in Calgary, the infrastructure will be in such stress, and it will ruin already the quality of life that a lot of people gained over the years by buying into those price neighborhood that are very nice and cozy, and you have a lot of room. Now you're going to squeeze a lot of people into an infrastructure that's not meant to be.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, very good point, Perry. Something to think about. Thank you so much for your call. Great to hear from you. I'm Rob Snow. Still time for a couple of more calls. We'll be right back. It's Talkback, winding things down on a Wednesday here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I've enjoyed the conversation today. Housing it's such a top of mind issue for so many people. And Pierre Poilievre, of course, under the microscope, he could be the next prime minister of the country. Let's go to Charlie, Grey Highlands. Charlie.
Rob, how are you doing today?
Good today, Charlie. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I got a little thing here on Pierre Poilievre, okay? Pierre Poilievre getting a bit sick and tired of seeing what Jackie Zing and Justin Trudeau are doing to this country. Day after day, seeing this Trudeau and his sidekick, Jackie Zing, destroy this great country with housing crisis.
Jugmeat, sir. His name is Jugmeat. Yeah.
Canadians having a hard time putting food on the table. Canadians living in tents. Homeless Canadians. The carbon tax. Pierre Poilievre, we Canadians need you and your leadership.
All right. Okay. Do I send the invoice to you or to the Conservative Party of Canada, Charlie?
Well, you could send it to the Conservative Party of Canada.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Look, I just want to talk about his leadership style. That was kind of the point of the conversation. Thank you, Charlie. I mean, I followed the guy's career since he won his first election. I was in his riding on election night when he first got elected. It was one of the first elections that I worked in the news business. I was sent to his riding on election night way back then. Look, the guy loves a fight, no doubt about that. He was for years a conservative pit bull attack dog. I actually think, and some of you may find this hard to believe, I actually think the guy's mellowed out a tiny little bit over the years. His nickname used to be Skippy, right? He's not that guy anymore. He's married. He has children now. Yeah, it always mellows people out a little bit. I think it changes their outlook on life. I do think he's grown up. I do think he's matured. I do think he regrets some of the things that he's said in the past, like the remarks that he made about First Nations on the day Stephen Harper was giving the apology for residential schools. I was working at that radio station the day that he said that. I don't think the 2024 version of Pierre Poilievre would say something like that. But my point today was it's very common to read columns from political commentators now that he's too mean, he's too harsh, he hasn't learned to moderate his tone. And you certainly hear it from his political opponents that he's a sloganeer, he's full of platitudes, he's debasing the political debate of the day, remarks are over the top, bullying the media. And there's this idea out there among the political class that all this is going to catch up with him. And if he doesn't tone it down a little bit, he's going to blow it. I don't buy it, but it's certainly a line of thinking that is popular in political Ottawa these days. The latest breaking news. Coming up next. This is News Radio.